Best of r/malicious compliance episode 91. Subscribe for Reddit videos daily. I work in a small town. With this coronavirus scare, volume has been down as people have been advised to not go to the unless they are truly sick and need to be stabilized. However, we still have some employers in town that are directing their employees to the for work notes. They are telling them to get tested for coronavirus and only come back if the test is negative, and with a work note. Well, every state is short on testing kits. Only truly high-risk people are being tested. In my county, this means you must have just come from Wuhan, China or Seattle. There hasn't been a single case yet in my county or city, but people are being told to come get tested. So instead of testing, we are asking people to self-quarantine for 14 days if they are feeling sick and have symptoms of coronavirus. I've been giving every single employee sent in by their employer for a coronavirus work note 2 weeks off so they can self-quarantine. Employees are happy. Thank you. Next. This happened several years ago, but reading the sub makes me feel like I should post this. I work as a PCA and my client is diabetic and sensitive to chocolate. Client's spouse, co-worker, and myself were sitting down at a buffet and had just finished eating. Client looks at me and asks me for a small bit of chocolate soft serve. I reminded them of the diabetes and chocolate sensitivity, but they were adamant. So, I get up and put in the tiniest bit of chocolate ice cream I could. It was 1 spoonful. Brought it back to them. They looked into the bowl and started laughing. They ate it and asked for a little bit more for the next serving. Thank you. Next. My job decided that they will only allow parents to work from home during this time. However, we all possess equal capabilities to do so. Our office has stopped walk-in clients. That's cool. As someone with chronic illness, I would be happy to work from home during this time. My temperature is regularly above 100, so guess what? I'm going to use my sick time for the next 2 weeks. I was gonna work, but I guess not. Thank you. Next. As you can imagine, a lot of companies are figuring out how to manage remote staff right now in response to COVID-19. I am a social media manager for a large university, and I'm considered essential staff for some instances. If there's a snow day, I can work from home but need to monitor social channels for questions, problems etc. Weeks before the virus got as widespread as it is now in the US, I asked my supervisor to consider remote options as my husband and I had been keeping a close look at its progression abroad, and he has an autoimmune disease, but I was literally laughed at and told it would never happen. Last week, our university announced that they'd be shifting to online learning for 3 weeks. I again asked if we'd be given remote options at this time as well to help flatten the curve, and given that my job can be done literally anywhere, it shouldn't be a problem. I again was told nope. As essential staff I'd absolutely have to come in, and more details would be given in an hour email later that day. HR email comes in and affirms that all staff were expected to come in as normal, about 4,000 employees, and if you wanted to take time at home, you'd need to take personal, vacation or sick time. Staff could call/email HR and make individual cases to request remote work, but I'm in the state with the 4th highest cases of COVID-19 right now. And we all know college campuses are cesspools for disease, so staff is livid. The next day, I emailed my supervisor again and told them that I called/emailed HR saying that if I don't get approval for remote work, I'm going to follow email protocol and take sick leave for the foreseeable future. Luckily, I am in a union and can request up to 26 weeks of 100% paid sick leave for myself for caring for family, and I knew it would get approved. I said the ball was in their court, and they could either have me at home actually working, or have me at home and be down an essential staff member. Silence. In the meantime, I got a phone call back from HR from a frantic employee who said they received literally thousands of emails/phone calls similar to the one I sent and I could expect an update by end of day. Turned out I was not the only one threatening their bosses with time off. At 5 p.m., we got an email that all staff and classes are remote until further notice. I know it's likely they would have eventually made this call anyway, but I'd like to think the thousands of employees threatening malicious compliance made it happen sooner. Thank you. Next. I work in a small team of 4 people. I am at the front. My colleagues work in the back. 80% of my work can be done remotely. The other 20% I've been asked not to do unless absolutely necessary, to minimize contact, seems reasonable. Some of my customers are in the risk group. So now I felt sick, and asked my immediate superior if I could work from home as well, since all our company has been ordered to do so already anyway. Not to mention I shouldn't be running around to people when I feel sick. Sorry, not possible. We need you to be here because reasons. If you really feel sick, you should go see a doctor. I can do that, but with my symptoms and the overall situation he would put me on sick leave and self-quarantine for at least 14 days. If you just send me home now, I can self-quarantine and work from home until it gets better, or worse. Why should he do that? Because we are in the middle of a pandemic, because our region is a hotspot, and because we do business in Asia by sending people there, and because I have raised temperature and feel like shit and shouldn't be coughing on other people's keyboards and mice. I think you're overreacting. Just go see a doctor if you feel sick. Alright then. Insert your soothing music of choice while I go see a doctor and receive my 14-day quarantine. Today's second day of sick leave, my private phone rings. It's a number from work. I rather ignore it and look at my work emails. Seems like the person in charge of sick calls is sick. Oh, the irony. And my boss is wondering where I am. Paraphrasing. Hey boss, I am under quarantine. What? Why? Have you been tested positive? Sorry boss, I am not legally required to share my diagnosis. Here's my doctor's note. We'll be on sick leave for the next 2 weeks. After that we'll see. But I just wanna know if we here have to take any precautions now. I understand, and yes, you should absolutely follow the precautions that have been advertised all the time. Stay at home, if possible. And if you feel sick, go see a doctor and follow his advice. I know it sounds like and then they all applauded, but in fact it's just shitty that even amidst a pandemic we can't have nice things and watch out for each other, but still need a doctor's note to stay the fuck at home when everyone is telling us to stay the fuck at home. Oh, I forgot the probably most important thing for all readers not hailing from Germany. Our work laws exclusively forbid working while you are sick. If you are sick, you are sick. If you work and anything happens, no work insurance and everyone is in for a world of regulatory pain in the ass. That wouldn't have applied if I could just have stayed the fuck home. Then it would have been my decision to work though not feeling so well. Edit 1. Clarified private phone and work email. Edit 2. Clarified important details about our work laws. Thank you. Next. This story happened to a friend of mine over 30 years ago. Names are protected. One of my friends used to be a systems administrator, one of the top people who ever worked in the field. She built the largest private internet network that existed at the time, for a major university. If there are any top people in the field here you already know who I'm talking about. Please don't mention her name. She tells me stories about warming her pizza on top of the PDP-11 and having to talk to the NRC before she could install computers in the building close to the nuclear reactor. Whether you know it or not, there is a good chance that you use software she designed on a daily basis. She's kinda baffled that it is still in use. When she left that job, a very prestigious tech firm in Boston hired her to be their expert on computer networks. Hiring her was a real coup for the new employer. She really was the expert on the subject at the time. Now, she, like many top tech people of the time, basically lived in her office. She had an official home, but would only end up there a few times a week. So when she was hired, one condition she put on working there was that she be allowed to bring her pet tarantula, in its tank, to her office, because otherwise she wouldn't see it often enough to feed it and it would die. So this was agreed and put into her contract by HR and upper management. This fact becomes important. On her start date she arrived and was putting her books and things on shelves in her new office, and the tarantula tank was sitting on her new desk. Her new boss walked in, made small talk for a little while, saw the tank, and said, "Boss, eek, what is that?" "Friend, that's my tarantula. Would you like to pet her?" "Boss, that's not allowed in here. You have to take it away right now." So my friend did as the boss asked. She took her books off the shelves, took the tank, and went home. She was employed there for 45 minutes, and the company lost the world's leading expert on computer networks because the boss hadn't bothered to read the contract for her new star employee. Thank you. Next. So this is about 5 years ago. I worked as a chef at a bakery. It was my job to make everything but the baked goods. Every morning the baker and I would walk in at about 4 AM and knock out all the food needed for the day. This would leave me ready to go home around 10 AM or so. This put us at the perfect time to deliver online orders. It was common for companies or other entities to place large catering orders with us. The baker and I would split them down the middle and deliver them on our way home. The delivery in question was for Bob, Dick, and Harry, attorneys at law. I have never delivered to BD&H before, but they were a regular of sorts. Every financial quarter, they would hold a huge meeting. This meeting would require roughly $700 of bagels and bagel accessories. This spread included 8 dozen bagels, all 10 of our flavors of cream cheese, pastries, brownies, and enough coffee to power a college dorm though finals week. My passenger seat, entire back seat, and entire trunk are filled with food. Now BD&H is located on the 9th floor of a commercial skyscraper deep in an industrial complex downtown. Parking was non-existent. There were meters outside the building, but I knew I would need close to 10 trips to deliver all this food, and didn't have a lot of change on me. Company policy was to just pay whatever fines I needed to park and then turn in my receipts. The money would end up on my next paycheck. So the building has its own parking garage, so I pull on in. The security guard, let's call him Sam, stops me and says that the parking garage is for employees only. I happily show him my delivery invoice, and offer him a bribery bagel. Never leave the store without at least 2. Sam refuses the bagel and says I can park in one of the guest spots on the bottom floor. The fee is $5 for every 30 minutes, minimum $10. I thank him and head to the bottom floor of the garage. So there are a total of 6 guest parking spaces. Just 6. All of them are taken. I head back up to talk to Sam, when I see an open parking spot reserved for Bob, Dick and Harry, attorneys at law. There are cars in every spot, with many spots being reserved for employees by name. The last spot is empty, and is reserved for guests of BD&H. Perfect. I pull on in. I grab the most important part of the delivery, the coffee, and head to the stairwell. I get into the elevator and hit the button for floor 9. The elevator asks for my employee ID card. Well, crud. So, I try the lobby. That works. From there it's 9 flights of stairs until I am outside the law firm of Bob, Dick, and Harry. After introducing myself, I am shown to the room where the meeting will take place. A table is set aside for me. I set down the coffee and head for trip number 2. That is when I see Sam talking to the receptionist. He runs over and starts shouting at me. I am putting a boot on your effing car. I told you to park in guest on the bottom floor. I don't get a word in before he launches into a speech about security and how I could be hurting his building or people. That is when a very well-dressed man walks over. It so happens to be Bob, the Bob of Bob, Dick and Harry's. Bob asks what is the problem and soon the two are arguing. Bob, OP is delivering food for my meeting. He is allowed to use my parking spots. Sam, those parking spots belong to the building. You are leasing them like you lease this floor. I am the one who says who can park there. He isn't an employee so he isn't parking. Bob, then I am making him an employee. Sam, you can't do that. Bob, Dart, you know what? You are right. Harry, get over here. Harry walks over with an amused look on his face. Bob, Harry here is the head of our HR department. Harry, hire this boy. Harry pulls out a piece of paper and scribbles. OP is now a member of Bob, Dick, and Harry's and signs it, then asks me to sign as well. I do so. Bob reaches over to the receptionist, who is already grabbing some things. Bob, here is your employee badge, your parking permit and your elevator key card. Now please, do the job I have hired you to do, and deliver my bagels. Sam looks on in utter fury as I ride the elevator down to my car. 7 sweet elevator rides later, all the food is delivered. Bob and Harry meet me at the table. Bob, OP, you have made great strides in this company and I am proud of your work, but I feel it is time for us to part ways. Here is your final check. Bob then hands me a crisp $50 bill. Harry, and your severance package. Now please be sure to return your badge and card on the way out. Harry hands me a $20 and sends me on my way. The receptionist is sure to validate the parking ticket that Sam gave me, and I head on out. On the way out, Sam grins at me and asks for my ticket. I place it in the machine in his station. It sees a validation I got, and lets me out for free. Sam glares at me as I drive off into the late morning sun. TLDR. Security guard said I didn't work here so I can't park here. Client pretends to hire me to get around the rules. Never argue with lawyers.